Hi, today we're going to be looking at transformational leadership. This is the leadership theory that's pretty much the dominant theory today. It's the theory that's the most research is being done upon. It's the theory that tends to be most appreciated. And even if you look at the course description in the catalog for this course, you'll see that transformational leadership is the focus, the goal that the faculty and staff at APU would like to have for students taking this course. So let's look and see what uh, um, this theory is all about. First of all, transformational leadership talks about transforming, changing, making a permanent impact on things. And transformational leadership, it talks about a process. It assumes, in the definition of transformational leadership, that a leader's behaviors and the processes that occur when leaders and followers interact can change and transform the individuals. There's a big sense of influence here, as there are in all definitions of leadership. Transformational leadership assumes that a leader's influence can move followers to accomplish more than what they would do otherwise. So it's kind of like the leader makes the follower more capable in doing what he needs to do for the good of the company. Now, some of the core elements involved in transformational leadership um, uh, come from the fact that transformational leadership assumes that leaders can influence followers' emotions, values, ethics, standards, and long-term goals. So all of these things that a follower has, which are moldable, which are changeable, emotions, values, ethics, standards, and long-term goals. This model assumes that leaders are able to impact those and change them for the better, making the follower into a better person. And the way that transformational leadership is measured is with a questionnaire known as the MLQ, the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire. Basically, what it does is it measures different leadership behaviors that are considered important in this framework to understand their effects on the motivation and the performance and the satisfaction of the subordinates. So let's look at what this transformational leadership is. Now, to understand transformational leadership, it's often put in contrast with other types of leadership. We're going to start off with the most common form of leadership, transactional leadership. So this is not transformational leadership, this is transactional leadership. And that's the idea that leadership can cause people to do something based on exchanges that occur between leaders and followers. For example, if a politician promises no new taxes, he gets votes. And if he continues no new taxes, he gets votes. There's an exchange between no new taxes and votes. If a car salesman sells more cars, he might get a bonus. So there's an exchange going on. If students turn in assignments, students get good grades from the professor. If you surpass your goals in sales, you might get a promotion. So these types of exchanges are extremely common in everyday life, and they're fairly typical in organizations. But they're considered transactional leadership because there's a transaction. It doesn't necessarily transform the leader or the follower. It's just there's a transaction that gets the goal done. This can be in contrast to transformational leadership, which is a process of engaging with others to create a connection that increases both the motivation and the morality of the follower and the leader. So it's this process, this engaging on an emotional and caring level that changes the motivation and the moral values of everybody involved, which is a pretty high goal. So in this type of leadership, the leader is supposed to be attentive to the needs and motives of the followers and tries to help the followers reach their potential, their fullest potential to develop into all that they can be, at the same time working so that the organization achieves its goals. Now, a classic example of transformational leadership is Gandhi in India, who raised the hopes and the demands of millions of people who led the Indian independence movement. And in the process, he himself was changed and he grew and he changed the country, he changed people. It was a very transformational process for everybody involved as he led India towards independence. So we've got transactional leadership, we've got transformational leadership, and then a third description that goes in here is what's known as pseudo-transformational leadership. This is transformational leadership where the leader transforms the follower, but rather than focusing on the good of the follower, the transformation focuses on the leader's own interest rather than the interests of his or her own followers. So it's like negative transformational leadership. And oftentimes this is considered a leader that's self-consumed with his own person, who exploits others, who's power-oriented, might have warped moral values. And this typically includes leaders like Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein, who were very charismatic, very transformational, but we don't really like their moral values, and they caused a lot of problems for their followers. So we say that rather than demonstrating transformational leadership, they demonstrated pseudo-transformational leadership. Now, what are the behaviors that transformational leaders use? There's three groups of leadership behaviors that are examined in transformational leadership. There's, first of all, the ones that are predominant in transformational leadership. There's the ones that are predominant in transactional leadership. And then there's another category that's dominant in what's known as laissez-faire leadership. Laissez-faire is a French expression for let them do whatever. It's basically non-leadership, just letting people do what they want to do. So in transformational leadership, there's the four I's. All four things here start with I. You can tell things when you've got this alliteration, all the same letters. You can tell it was designed by a baby boomer or older, because these type of things were really popular. First of all, there's idealized influence, or another way of expressing it is charisma. The leader is just a really likable guy. People see him or her and they say, "Whoa, I like that person. I want to be like him. I want to be like her." He's just a real likable person, and who's exercising influence. You say, "Yeah, I want to be influenced by that type of person." So that's idealized influence. Factor two is inspirational motivation. That's the ability to communicate a vision so that people would get behind that vision and say, "Yes, I want that in my life. I want to work towards that goal." The third factor is intellectual stimulation, the idea that somebody's got great ideas, that gets people to process the information that they receive in such a way as to transform it into strategies to accomplish the overall goals of the organization. It's basically somebody that's really smart, who's got those ideas, who knows how to motivate other people to use their brain power also to strategize to accomplish what they need to accomplish. And then the fourth factor is individualized consideration. That's the idea of paying attention to each individual. Every subordinate to treat as really valuable, to take in consideration their own situation, their own needs, their own desires, their own motivating factors, and to pay close attention to every individual that one has contact with. So these are the four I's that define transformational leadership. Now in this model, transactional leadership is also considered. And there's two different factors, two different types of behaviors. There's kind of like a positive and a negative set of behaviors. The first factor is called contingent reward. And that means it's the idea of rewarding people who do what's good, giving good things to people who do what they're supposed to do. And those can be considered constructive transactions. These can be separated from punishments, basically, which are known as corrective transactions. And we've got what's known as management by exception. That's the idea of a manager getting involved in a situation when things go bad, when mistakes are made. Active management by exception is the manager watching over you, making sure that you don't make any mistakes, continually testing and measuring to see how you're doing. Passive management by exception is the idea that, there's a problem, time to get the manager involved, and the manager comes and gets involved and fixes the problems, takes disciplinary action as necessary. So the transactional leadership can either be very positive with rewards, people tend to like those, or it can be kind of negative with corrective, coercive, punitive transactions, and people tend not to like those. And then finally, other factors get classified as laissez-faire, non-transactional behaviors, just delegating, saying, oh yeah, go do this however you want to do it. Now, it turns out that generally, in most organizations, the bread and butter of leadership is transactional leadership. You get hired, you're given a job description, you do the job description, and you get paid. So it's basically a contingent reward, but there's also management by exception. If you don't do it, you don't get paid, and you can get fired, and that produces the expected outcomes. But in the theory of transformational leadership, if you add transformational leadership to the transactional leadership, you get performance that goes beyond expectations. So you add the 4 I's, idealized influence, being that person that people want to serve, the inspirational motivation, getting people excited about the vision, the intellectual stimulation, having those great ideas that motivate people to move forward, and individual consideration, considering every individual really important, plus the contingent rewards leads to higher performance. And that's what transformational leadership is essentially about. Now, the strengths of this theory, first of all, there's the intuitive appeal. People are attracted to transformative leadership because it makes sense to them. Yeah, transactions are good, but yeah, we really like some leaders more than others, and they motivate us to do more. It's also very consistent with Christian values also, because you're not forcing people to do things. You're using the relationship with them to help them accomplish the goals of the organization, but also to become better people. Another strength of this is that it emphasizes the followers. The effect on the followers is what counts. Transactional leadership emphasizes followers' needs, values, and morals, and we can measure those to see if those or the leader can take those into consideration when determining how to influence the people around him. And then there's evidence that it's effective, and this evidence continues to grow because this is what lots and lots of research is being. It's the paradigm that's being used for much of today's research. And so the evidence supports the idea that transactional leadership is effective. The dimensions that are measured, especially the 4 I's and contingent rewards. It's interesting, contingent rewards are go in that very positive category as the 4 I's also. And these things definitely impact followers' motivation. They can be more motivated when the 4 I's are there. Affects their performance when the 4 I's are there and when contingent rewards are there. And their satisfaction for working in a situation. So it is an effective way of carrying out leadership in a very, very broad context. Now, of course, there are also criticisms about this theory. First of all, the dimensions really aren't clearly delimited. The four eyes kind of overlap. It's not always clear that they're especially different from each other. And even the transactional behaviors and the transformational leadership behaviors overlap. Another criticism with it is that it essentially ignores task-oriented behavior, task-focused behavior that we've seen in so many of these other theories are really important. For example, planning, defining roles, defining objectives, problem solving, all of that, they don't really play any role in transformational leadership. And the validity of the questionnaires that are typically used, the various forms of the multi-factor leadership questionnaires, the MLQs, are not fully established. In fact, there's some evidence that basically all that it's measuring is how much the follower likes the leader. And in that sense, if the follower likes the follower is going to try to please the leader and become like the leader because person's really likable, and that's why the transformational leadership causes people to work more effectively because they're trying to please the leader, which is not part of the theory, but that really might be what's going on. Another criticism is that the transformational leadership treats leadership more as a set of personality traits and abilities rather than a behavior that can be taught. A lot of the things are like charisma, which is very personality trait oriented, intelligence, being able to cast a vision, which is based on communication skills and personality. So it's not really specific behaviors that can be taught. They can be encouraged, and in fact, training does indicate that at least for some people and for at least some followers, maybe not all followers, transformational leadership can be taught and used to improve performance. Another issue is it's not clear that transformational leaders actually transform leaders and organizations. It's not clear that they make permanent changes. Maybe it's just changing their motivation on a temporary level and giving them that extra push to make that extra effort without truly transforming them. So even though it works, it might not be doing what the theory says that it's doing. And then one of the most dangerous criticisms is that it has the potential to be abused. Like we said before, Hitler, Saddam Hussein, all very charismatic, all very transformational leaders, and even in any context where we don't have very clear moral standards that are based on absolutes, the difference between this transformational and this pseudo-transformational leadership can be very blurred. So how is this applied in practice? First of all, it provides a general way of thinking about leadership that stresses ideals, inspiration, innovations, and individual concern. It motivates people to go further than they would without that motivation. It can be taught to people in all levels of the organization, and that's why you take courses like this, so that you'll say, oh yeah, this is what I need to be focusing on. Different organizations have seminars and training programs in transformational leadership. It can also be used as a tool in recruitment and selection of potential leaders, as well as for promotion and training leadership. So you can look for people that are going to have the ability to inspire other people, who have ideals, who are the type of people that inspire others, who are capable of motivating people to innovate, who have the ideas necessary to push people, to stimulate them towards innovation, and who are very concerned about individuals. So it can be used not just for helping one's own self grow, but for leadership selection and training other people. And when the MLQ is completed, especially when you have followers complete it for the leaders, it's a lot more useful that way. It's not really a self assessment that can be used because we're all biased. We all think that we're likable and we inspire other people and that we're innovative and things like that. But you got to ask your followers to get a lot truer picture. By having one's followers fill out the MLQ, it can help the leaders target areas of leadership improvement, and which can be quite beneficial because a dose of reality can be quite beneficial. All right, I hope you enjoy this chapter. I think it's one of the most valuable there is. It's fairly complicated, but these four I's plus the transactional leadership can really help make you into a leader that has a huge influence on the people that are under your influence.